age, but I've always been a bit of a watcher. Since I retired, I don't have much to keep me busy besides tending to my plants, doing crossword puzzles, and, well, paying attention to the neighborhood. My house faces a quiet street in a small town, where everyone at least knows their neighbors by name. But there's one house, 2 doors down on the left, that always gave me a strange feeling. Not for any big reason, just something about it always felt off. The man who lives there is probably in his 40s, tall, wiry, and quiet. I've never heard him speak to anyone on the street. What caught my attention in the first place was his nightly routine. Every single night, like clockwork, he would leave his house at exactly 2:17 a.m. Not 2:15, not 2:20 to 2:17. I started noticing because I usually wake up around that time to use the bathroom, and his headlights would light up my bedroom wall just as I was getting back into bed. He'd drive off, always wearing the same dark jacket and cap, and he'd be back around 3:46 a.m., just as precise. I don't know why I started keeping track. Maybe it was boredom, maybe just curiosity, but after a while, I began writing it down. And for weeks, it was the exact same thing. Same time out, same time back. No variations. Until one night it changed. That night, I remember waking up and immediately sensing something was different. It was 2:30 a.m. and the street was completely dark. No headlights, no engine sound, nothing. I sat up in bed and looked out the window, and his driveway was still full. His car hadn't moved. I waited for a few minutes, then checked again at 2:45. Still there. I told myself maybe he was sick or had some kind of emergency, but it didn't sit right with me. It wasn't just that he didn't leave, it was the silence. It felt heavier than usual, like the whole block was holding its breath. I barely slept the rest of the night, just staring out the window every so often, waiting for those headlights that never came. The next morning, I was having my coffee and watching the local news like I always do, and that's when I saw it. A woman had been found dead in a park about 10 minutes from here. The reporter said the time of death was estimated between 2 and 4 a.m., right in that gap when he usually left. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just the timing. The report mentioned she had no personal belongings on her, and the body had been staged in a strange, almost ritualistic way. That word stuck with me, ritualistic. Something about his precision, that bizarre consistency of his nightly schedule, just clicked. I couldn't shake the thought that whatever he was doing out there every night wasn't innocent. I tried to talk myself out of it, I really did. I kept thinking, you're being dramatic. You've watched one too many crime shows. But I couldn't help it, there were too many coincidences. That day, I kept glancing over at his house through the blinds. He didn't leave at all. Not for work, not for groceries, nothing. And then around 6 p.m., I saw him come out to get the mail, and I swear to God he looked different. Not like tired or sick, more like relieved. Relaxed, almost. He stood there for a second, staring down the street like he was waiting for something, and then went back inside. That's when I decided I needed to pay closer attention. I wrote down everything I could remember from the past nights. Times, dates, notes on what he wore, even the weather. It felt crazy, but I needed something to make sense. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. At exactly 2:17, I jumped out of bed and peeked through the curtains. His car wasn't moving. Lights off. Total stillness. At 2:18, still nothing. At 2:19, I noticed something. His living room light flickered on for a second, then off. I couldn't see much from my window, but it looked like a figure moved across the room. Not fast, not frantic, slow. Calm. I had this horrible thought that maybe he wasn't out that night because he didn't need to leave. Like maybe whatever he usually went out to do, he had brought it home this time. I actually felt sick to my stomach. I closed the curtain and sat on the floor, just listening. I don't know what I was hoping to hear. Or not hear. Around 3:40 a.m., just before the time he would normally return, I heard something, 3 sharp knocks. Not at my door, but faint, distant. It sounded like it came from the direction of his house. I turned everything off, TV, lights, even my fan, just to hear better. Nothing followed. No footsteps, no car. Just the creak of the wind and my own breathing. I crept to the front window again and stayed low, peeking just above the sill. His car was still there, parked exactly the same way. But the porch light was on now, and I swear I could see something dark on the steps. I couldn't tell what it was, maybe a bag, maybe just a shadow, but it wasn't there earlier. My chest was tight, like something was pressing down on me. The next day, the news had an update. The victim had been identified, and the report mentioned that neighbors near the park had seen a tall, thin man wearing a dark jacket and cap walking alone around 3 a.m. That was it for me. I couldn't pretend anymore. I called the non-emergency police line and told them what I'd been seeing, about his nightly routine, the exact times, the night he didn't leave, everything. They were polite, took down my statement, said someone might follow up. But days passed and nothing happened. No one came to my door. And just like that, he went back to his old schedule. 2:17 out. 3:46 back. Like clockwork. As if that one night had never broken the pattern. I thought maybe I'd done the right thing, and the police were just keeping quiet. Maybe they were watching him. I even started sleeping a little better, convincing myself I'd handed it off to the right people. But then one night, a week later, I was out on my porch just after sunset watering my plants when he passed by on foot. He never walks, ever. But there he was, walking slowly, hands in his pockets, like he was taking in the neighborhood. He looked right at me. Not for long, just a second. But it was long enough to feel it. That look, it wasn't friendly, it wasn't curious. It was like he knew I'd been watching. My stomach dropped, and I just nodded, pretending everything was fine. He didn't say a word. Just kept walking. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I kept my phone in my hand, ready to call someone, anyone, if something felt off. But the hours passed and nothing happened. He left at 2:17, came back at 3:46, same as always. But now it felt worse. Like before, his routine made him seem predictable, like I could understand it. But now it felt calculated, like he was letting me know he saw me, and still chose to carry on like nothing had changed. That same night, another woman was reported missing from the next town over. No body found yet. No suspects. Just gone. After that, I stopped watching. I couldn't take it anymore. Every time I looked out the window, I felt like he was already looking back. I kept all my blinds shut, even during the day. I only went outside when I absolutely had to. For a while, it felt like I was losing my mind. I'd hear things, soft knocks, distant footsteps, creaks on my porch late at night. But every time I checked, there was nothing there. I started keeping a chair wedged under my front door handle, like that would do anything if he really wanted to come in. The thing is, after that last disappearance, he didn't skip a single night. Not one. The timing never changed again. It was like that one break in the routine was deliberate. A test, maybe. Or a warning. It's been months now. No more news reports, no more disappearances around here. At least none they've connected to anything. And I haven't heard from the police, not even once. He still leaves at 2:17 a.m. and comes back at 3:46 a.m. every night, without fail. And I don't watch him anymore. I don't want to know where he goes. I don't want to understand it. But sometimes, when I'm lying awake and the headlights flash across my wall, I still check the clock. 2:17, like always. And that's what haunts me. Not the night it stopped, but the fact that it started again just like before. As if that one missing piece was enough. As if that one night was all he needed. And I'll never know what he did, but I know he did something. I don't really know how to start this because, honestly, I still question if I should have just walked away and pretended I didn't see anything. I've been cleaning houses for a living for over 7 years now. I work mostly alone through word of mouth, and I've gotten used to seeing all kinds of weird stuff in people's homes. Nothing shocks me anymore. Or at least that's what I thought. A few weeks ago, I had this new client. A single dad, seemed normal, maybe in his early 40s. Quiet, polite, kept to himself. The house was in a quiet neighborhood, well kept, no signs of anything off. He had a son, I think around 6 or 7 years old. That day, like usual, I started upstairs. The kid's room was small, full of toys, drawings, a little bed shaped like a race car. Completely normal. While I was dusting one of the shelves near the window, I noticed something odd inside one of the stuffed animals. A teddy bear on the top shelf that looked newer than the rest. The eyes were weirdly glossy, not like regular plastic, but more like a reflective glass. I felt this chill crawl up my neck. I grabbed the bear, squeezed it a bit, and that's when I felt something hard inside, too solid to be just stuffing. I undid a small seam in the back, like barely noticeable, and there it was. A tiny black camera, wired and neatly placed inside the bear's head, pointed exactly toward the bed. My heart dropped. I just stood there holding the damn thing, frozen, trying to make sense of what the hell I was looking at. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but every instinct in me screamed that this wasn't right. I didn't know what to do at first. I put the bear back exactly how I found it and finished cleaning the room. but my hands were shaking the whole time. I couldn't stop thinking about that camera. Who the hell put something like that in a kid's room? I was going back and forth in my head. Do I call the cops? Do I confront the dad? What if there's a reasonable explanation? But something about it felt wrong in a way I can't explain. It wasn't just the camera, it was how hidden it was, like someone went out of their way to make sure no one would ever find it. I tried to finish the rest of the house like normal, but I was barely paying attention. I just wanted to get out of there. As I was getting my things ready to leave, the dad got home. I didn't even hear the door at first. He just appeared in the hallway and kind of startled me. He looked at me for a second, then asked if everything went okay. I don't know what got into me, but I asked him straight up, "Hey, was that camera and the teddy bear in the kids' room yours?" He froze. I mean, literally didn't say a word for a solid 5 seconds. Then he kind of laughed, like a nervous chuckle, and said, "What camera?" I told him I saw it, and that I wasn't stupid. That's when his whole face changed. He went pale, then serious, then kind of calm. Too calm. He said, "Listen, I didn't put that there. But I need you not to say anything. Please." I asked him what he meant by that. If he didn't put it there, then who did? And why the hell wouldn't he want me to tell anyone? He looked around like he was checking if someone was listening, even though we were alone. Then he said something that honestly made my skin crawl. He said, "It's not the first time I found stuff like that in this house." I stared at him, waiting for him to explain, but he didn't say anything else. Just stood there with that blank look, like he'd already said too much. I asked him if he called the cops when he found the first one, and he shook his head slowly. Said he didn't want trouble. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't just a creepy incident. It sounded like something deeper, something ongoing. He walked me to the door like nothing had happened, and right before I stepped out, he repeated it. "Please don't tell anyone about this." His voice was steady, but his eyes weren't. There was something in his face, like fear, but not of me. More like fear of something else, something I wasn't seeing. I drove home in silence, heart racing the whole way. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the camera, the kid, the way the dad had reacted. The worst part is, I started wondering if the kid's room was the only place with a camera. If that was the one I found by accident, how many others were there, hidden better? And who was watching? The next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stepped into something way bigger than I realized. I thought about canceling all my other clients and taking a break, but I couldn't stop thinking about that kid. I kept imagining him sleeping in that bed while someone, somewhere, watched through the eyes of a teddy bear. I decided to go back to the house. I told myself it was just to grab a small cleaning supply I'd forgotten. But deep down I knew I wanted to check the place again. When I got there, the house was empty, no car in the driveway. I let myself in with the spare key he had given me. I went straight to the kid's room, and the teddy bear was gone. I froze. The shelf where it had been was clean, like it had never been there at all. I checked the closet, under the bed, even behind the furniture. Nothing. And not just that, something felt different in the room. It was colder, like the window had been open, but it wasn't. The air just felt heavy. I was about to leave when I noticed something else. The little night light on the wall, shaped like a moon, was on. I knew for a fact I had unplugged that the day before to clean around it. I walked over to turn it off, and I noticed a small red dot behind it, another camera. This one was even more hidden than the last. That's when I realized someone had been in the house between the time I left and now, and they'd removed the obvious camera and replaced it with something harder to spot. I didn't even think, I just turned around and left. I didn't bother locking the door, didn't care about the excuse I'd have to give the guy later. I got in my car, locked the doors, and sat there trying to breathe. My hands were sweaty, my chest felt tight, like I'd just escaped something I didn't even fully understand. I kept thinking, what if whoever put that camera is still in the house? What if they were watching me right then? I drove a few blocks before pulling over and calling a friend of mine who used to work as a tech guy for a private security firm. I told him everything, well, almost everything. I didn't give the client's name or address, but I asked him if it was possible for someone to access live feeds from hidden cameras without being in the house. He said absolutely. Said some of those tiny wireless cams can stream anywhere as long as there's a connection. That was the tipping point for me. I decided I wasn't going back to that house. I texted the client saying I was dropping him from my schedule. I kept it short and polite. A few minutes later, he replied with one word. Understood. No questions. No attempt to convince me otherwise. Just that. And honestly, that was almost worse. The way he accepted it so quickly made me think maybe he knew I'd seen more than I should. Maybe he expected me to run. Or maybe he was scared too. That's what really messes with my head even now. If he didn't put the cameras there, then who did? And why wouldn't he want anyone to know? After that, I started double-checking every house I cleaned. Closets, vents, behind mirrors, any place someone could hide something. It messed with me more than I'd like to admit. I started sleeping with my bedroom door locked, my phone on airplane mode, even covered the tiny lens on my laptop with tape. I know it sounds paranoid, but once you realize how easy it is to be watched without ever knowing, you can't unknow it. A couple of weeks later, I saw that client's name pop up on a local forum where people trade services. He was looking for another cleaning person. No mention of what happened. Just like nothing ever went down. That gave me this horrible feeling in my gut, like he'd just move on and let someone else stumble into whatever the hell was going on in that house. I thought about reporting it, I really did. But the truth is, I had no proof. I never took a photo of the camera, never recorded our conversation. And if he really didn't install it, what could I even accuse him of? The whole thing just stopped, like someone hit a switch. The kid's still there, I assume. I drive by the house sometimes, just to check if it's still standing, if the lights are on. It always looks so normal. That's what gets me, how normal it all seemed. I've told a few close friends about this, but even they don't really know what to say. I still wonder who was behind those cameras. I still wonder how many houses I've cleaned where I just never noticed. And most of all, I wonder if one day I'll see that teddy bear again, somewhere I least expect it. A few months passed, and I tried to push it all out of my head. Things went back to normal, or at least I pretended they did. Then one afternoon, I got a message from an unknown number. It was just a picture, no text, just a blurry photo of what looked like the inside of a room. It took me a few seconds, but I recognized it. It was my bedroom. The angle was weird, like it had been taken from up near the ceiling, right above where my wardrobe sits. I froze. My heart started pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I checked every inch of that room, tore the place apart, and finally found a tiny pinhole in the corner of the smoke detector. I didn't even think. I ripped the whole thing out of the ceiling and smashed it on the floor. Inside was a small black lens, just like the one I found in that teddy bear. I moved the next week. Didn't tell anyone where I was going, changed my number, deleted all my social media. I've kept quiet about all of this until now, but honestly, I still feel like I'm being watched. Maybe I'll never know who was behind it or why. Maybe it was random, or maybe it started with that house and followed me. All I know is, it stopped as suddenly as it started. No more pictures, no more messages, nothing, just silence. And sometimes I think that's even worse. Because now I live every day waiting for the next red light to blink, for the next bear on the shelf, for the next reminder that someone somewhere might still be watching and just hasn't made their move yet. I'm not really sure why I'm posting this. Maybe just to see if anyone else has experienced something remotely similar, because ever since it happened, I can't stop thinking about it. This was about 3 weeks ago. I was flying home from a work trip in Chicago, heading back to Portland. It was one of those evening flights, not super late, but late enough that everyone was kind of worn out and quiet. I had a window seat, and there was a woman in her mid-30s sitting next to me. Short, dark curly hair, round glasses, kind of a bookish look. She smiled politely when she sat down, but we didn't really talk. I remember she had a thick paperback she kept flipping through. I fell asleep not long after takeoff, just kind of lulled by the hum of the plane and the way the lights were dimmed. I don't know how long I was out, maybe an hour, maybe a bit more. But I woke up with that weird feeling like something was off, not like turbulence or noise, just a weird quiet. I glanced around and noticed the seat next to me was empty. At first, I figured she had just gone to the bathroom, but then I realized her book was gone. Her water bottle too, and the blanket that had been on her lap. I checked under the seat for her bag, but it wasn't there either. That's when it hit me. It was like she had never been there at all. I looked around the cabin and didn't see her standing or waiting for the restroom. I even peeked over the seats in front of me. Nothing. No one around me seemed bothered or even noticed anything weird. I tried not to overthink it at first. People move around on flights all the time. Maybe she switched seats with someone? But when I flagged down a flight attendant to ask if she had seen where the woman next to me went, she looked genuinely confused. She asked, "Was someone sitting next to you?" Like, completely serious. I told her yes, she was there when we boarded, had a book, was wearing a gray hoodie. The flight attendant kind of frowned and said she didn't remember seeing anyone there. I thought maybe she just missed it during boarding, but then I asked if she could check the manifest. She walked off for a bit, then came back and quietly told me that according to the system, that seat was never assigned. As in, no one had that seat. It was marked empty. I felt this sinking, almost nauseating sensation in my chest. I knew someone had been sitting there. I remember the sound of her flipping the pages of her book. I remember her asking me if I wanted to get up so she could go to the bathroom before takeoff. That happened. I wasn't imagining it. I asked the flight attendant if maybe the passenger switched seats or had moved somewhere else, but she just sort of shrugged and said it's possible. But again, she didn't see anyone. I even walked down the aisle myself, pretending to stretch my legs, just to see if I could spot her. I scanned every row. She wasn't there. There were empty seats, but no sign of her, no book, no hoodie, no backpack. Nothing. By that point, I was starting to feel really unsettled. I tried to convince myself there had to be some logical explanation. Maybe I'd just imagined talking to her. Maybe I'd dreamed it, but that didn't make any sense. I was awake when we boarded. I remember her waiting for me to buckle my seatbelt before she sat down. I even remember the flight attendant handing her a ginger ale during drink service. That happened. So how the hell was she just gone? I opened the seat pocket in front of where she'd been, and it was empty. Completely clean. No crumbs, no wrappers, no sign that anyone had used it at all. That detail really freaked me out for some reason, like someone had gone out of their way to erase that she'd ever been there. When we landed, I stayed in my seat and waited for the whole plane to empty out. I thought maybe I'd see her getting off, maybe she just moved seats and I somehow missed her. But she never showed. I checked the overhead bins too, even though I know it's not allowed. Her small roller bag that she'd placed above us, it was gone. I even made eye contact with one of the last passengers getting off and asked if he remembered a woman sitting next to me when we boarded. He just looked at me kind of blankly and said, "I don't think so," before walking off. That weirded me out more than I can explain. Like, how could no one remember her but me? I got off the plane feeling like I was losing my mind. I even stopped by the gate desk and asked one of the airline staff if they had any record of who was seated next to me in 18A. The woman at the desk pulled something up on her screen, frowned, and said that seat had been blocked for maintenance. That made no sense. I was literally sitting next to someone in that seat for the first part of the flight. I asked if it was possible that someone was assigned the seat by mistake and then moved, but she just shook her head and repeated that 18A had no boarding pass issued for it. I asked her if maybe there was a mix-up, like someone sneaking on the plane somehow, and she kind of gave me this tight smile and said, "That's not really possible, ma'am." I left feeling like no one believed me, or worse, that they thought I was making it up. When I got home, I tried to shake it off, but it stuck with me. I kept thinking about the way she looked, how normal she seemed. Not ghostly or strange or anything like that, just a regular woman with a book and a soft voice. I even started wondering if maybe I'd been drugged or something. Like, what if I hallucinated the whole thing? But that didn't make any sense either. I wasn't feeling sick, no memory gaps beyond the nap, nothing out of place. I checked my phone later to see if I'd maybe taken a photo that caught her in the background or something, but there was nothing. No selfies, no accidental shots, nothing that could prove she was ever there. That's the part that messes me up the most. There's literally zero evidence she existed. A few days later, I called the airline's customer service just to try one last time. I gave them my flight number, seat info, everything. The woman on the phone was polite, but she repeated the same thing. My seat was assigned, the seat next to me wasn't. No record of a passenger, no name, no boarding pass scanned for that spot. I asked if there had been any complaints or incidents on that flight, and she said it was a normal flight with no reports. I even asked if anyone had canceled last minute or been removed from the manifest, and again, nothing. I hung up feeling worse than before. Not only had no one seen her, but now I was the only person claiming she was ever there. It was like I'd been on a different flight from everyone else. Since then, I've gone back over it in my head 100 times. I know people don't just disappear from airplanes. There's security, lists, cameras. It's not like she could have slipped off midair. But it felt so real. I can still remember the sound of her voice when she asked me if I wanted to switch armrests. I remember how she smelled faintly like peppermint gum. You don't make up details like that. And yet here I am, weeks later, with no proof, no one backing me up, and nothing to explain what happened. It makes me question everything, my memory, my sanity, even my sense of reality. I've had trouble sleeping since. Every time I get on a plane now, I watch the people around me like a hawk. Last week, I finally mentioned it to a coworker, not the full story, just casually said something about weird stuff on flights. She laughed and said something like, "You wouldn't believe how many people imagine things mid-air," and I didn't push it. But as I was walking away, she asked, "Wait, was this on that United flight from Chicago a few Mondays ago?" I turned around and said yeah, surprised she remembered. And then she said, dead serious, "That's so weird. I took the same flight 2 months ago, and something kind of similar happened. The guy next to me just wasn't there when we landed. I figured he moved, but now I'm not so sure." She brushed it off right after, but my stomach dropped. I didn't even know what to say. What are the odds of that? I haven't told anyone else. Honestly, I don't even know how to explain it. She was there, I know she was. And then she wasn't. No one believes me, and I've stopped trying to make sense of it. It's like the plane swallowed her up. Or maybe I crossed paths with something I was never supposed to notice. I keep thinking, what if I had stayed asleep the whole flight? Would I have forgotten she was ever there? Or worse, what if I had been the one to disappear? I haven't flown since, and I'm not sure when I will again. I still check forums like this, looking for similar stories. I don't know what I'm hoping to find. Maybe just proof I'm not the only one. I still don't know how to explain what happened that day. It started like any other boring Tuesday. I was working from home, sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop, when I heard the knock on the door. It wasn't loud, just 3 soft taps, almost hesitant. When I opened the door, there was no one there, just a small, battered package sitting on the doormat. The weird part? It had my name and address neatly printed on the label, but I hadn't ordered anything, let alone sent something to be returned to me. It wasn't from any store or company I recognized either. Just an unmarked box with a faint, musty smell. My first thought was that it was a mistake, maybe a mix-up from the postal service, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside the box was a phone. Not a new one, either. This thing was old, cracked, and filthy, like it had been pulled out of a junkyard. As soon as I held it, I felt this weird chill run down my back, like I shouldn't be touching it. I turned it on, expecting it to be dead, but to my surprise, it powered up instantly. The screen lit up with this eerie blue glow, and there were already messages and videos saved on it. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach turn. The texts, there were dozens of them, were all addressed to me. My full name, spelled correctly. Some were just my name repeated over and over, but others had phrases like, "Why did you do it?" Or, "I know what you did." At that moment, I swear it felt like the walls of my house were closing in on me. I sat there for what felt like forever, staring at the screen. My hands were shaking, and my brain was racing, trying to figure out what was going on. I scrolled through the texts, but they didn't make any sense. Most were short, cryptic sentences like, "You can't hide," or "It's too late now." A few mentioned things that were unsettlingly personal. Details about my job, my routine, even the color of the shirt I was wearing that day. The videos were worse. The first one I opened showed a dark, blurry room. It took me a second to realize it was my own living room, filmed at night. The camera angle was low, almost like someone had placed the phone on the floor. I could see myself asleep on the couch in the corner of the frame, completely unaware. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. Then there was the sound. A faint, raspy breathing that didn't belong to me. It got louder as the video played, but I couldn't see anyone in the frame. Just me, passed out with the TV flickering in the background. Another video was similar. This time it was from my bedroom. The angle showed my bed, the sheets twisted around my legs, and the faint glow of my phone on the nightstand. Again, I was sleeping. And again, that horrible breathing sound. I remember muttering, "This has to be some kind of sick joke." But deep down, I knew it wasn't. There was no way someone could have filmed these without being in my house. That realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't stop myself from watching another video, even though every fiber of my being was screaming at me to stop. This one was different. The screen showed a dimly lit hallway, my hallway. The camera was shaky, like someone was walking while filming. I could hear faint footsteps, heavy and deliberate, and that same raspy breathing. The person filming reached my bedroom door, which was slightly ajar. The video ended just as the door began to creak open. My stomach churned, and I felt like I might throw up. My bedroom door was closed when I woke up that morning. I was sure of it. Whoever had filmed this had been inside my house recently, maybe even while I was still in it. Panic set in, and I did the only thing I could think of. I called the police. As I waited for them to arrive, I sat on my couch clutching the phone like it might explode. Every tiny noise in the house made me jump, and I kept glancing at the windows, half expecting to see a face staring back at me. When the officers got there, I tried explaining everything, but I could tell they didn't take me seriously. One of them even asked if I'd been drinking. They inspected the house, found no signs of forced entry, and brushed off the videos as easily faked. Before they left, one officer handed the phone back to me and said, "If it happens again, let us know." I wanted to scream at him. This wasn't some prank, someone had been in my house. But what could I do? They were gone as quickly as they came, and I was left alone with that cursed phone. After the cops left, I was too scared to stay in the house, but I didn't know where else to go. It was almost midnight by then, and I didn't have close friends or family nearby. I thought about booking a hotel room, but the idea of leaving my house felt just as dangerous as staying. What if whoever filmed those videos was watching, waiting for me to leave? I decided to stay, but I barricaded myself in my bedroom. I pushed a dresser in front of the door and kept a heavy flashlight next to me, clutching it like a weapon. The phone sat on the bed, taunting me. I wanted to throw it out the window, but a part of me felt like I needed to figure out where it came from, why it was sent to me. Against my better judgment, I opened the messages again. This time, there was a new one waiting for me. It had been sent minutes earlier, while the cops were still here. "Why didn't you tell them the truth?" it said. My heart nearly stopped. I hadn't told the officers anything but the truth, but the message made me question myself. Then, as if to mock me further, another video notification popped up. My hand hovered over the screen, every instinct screaming at me not to watch it, but curiosity won out. The video was just a few seconds long. It showed my face, staring at the phone in real time. My own horrified expression filled the screen, and behind me, I could see the faint outline of someone, standing in the shadows of my room. I spun around so fast I nearly fell off the bed, flashlight clutched in my hand. The room was empty, or at least it looked empty. My chest felt like it was about to burst, and I could hear my own breathing, fast and shallow, filling the silence. I shined the flashlight into every corner, under the bed, inside the closet, nothing. But the feeling didn't go away. You know that sensation when you just know you're being watched? That was it. I locked eyes with the phone again, still lying on the bed where I'd dropped it. The screen was dark now, but the faint glow of the notification light pulsed steadily. Whatever had sent that video, it wasn't done with me. I picked up the phone, my hands trembling so much I could barely keep my grip on it. I went to the gallery, desperate to see if there was any clue, something I'd missed. That's when I noticed a folder labeled with today's date. My throat went dry as I opened it. Inside were photos, dozens of them, all taken within the past few hours. There were shots of me sitting on the couch, pacing the living room, even peeking out the front window when the police had left. But the last photo was the worst. It was of me sleeping on the bed, surrounded by the barricade I had just set up. The timestamp was from less than 10 minutes ago. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. My heart was hammering in my chest, and for a second, I thought I might pass out. The timestamps didn't make sense. I hadn't fallen asleep. I couldn't have fallen asleep. But the image was right there, clear as day, and I couldn't deny it was me in the photo. My mind raced with questions I didn't have answers to. How could someone have taken that picture? How had they gotten into my room without me hearing? And worst of all, where were they now? I backed into the corner of the room, clutching the flashlight like a lifeline, my eyes darting around for any sign of movement. Then the phone buzzed again. Another message. I didn't want to look, but something about the insistent vibration felt like a demand. The screen lit up with a single sentence, "Come outside." My breath hitched, and my whole body tensed. It felt like a trap. Of course, it was a trap. But what choice did I have? If whoever, or whatever, this was could get into my house without me knowing, I wasn't safe inside either. My hands shook as I moved the dresser away from the door, every creak of the wood sounding deafeningly loud. I crept through the dark house, clutching the flashlight tightly, the phone buzzing in my pocket like a countdown to something I couldn't understand. I made it to the front door, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. The street outside was eerily quiet, bathed in the cold glow of the streetlights. I stood there, frozen, trying to convince myself to open the door. I didn't know what I was expecting, a person, an explanation, or maybe even something worse, but the fear of not knowing was unbearable. Slowly, I unlocked the door and stepped outside. The air was cold and still, and for a moment, nothing seemed out of place. But then I saw it. Sitting on the edge of the sidewalk was another package, identical to the first one, with my name and address on it. I didn't want to go near it. Every instinct told me to run, to get as far away from that box as possible. But like before, curiosity won out. My hands shook as I picked it up. It was heavier than the first one, and the same faint, musty smell lingered around it. I tore it open right there on the sidewalk, too terrified to wait until I was back inside. Inside was another phone, identical to the first, but this one wasn't broken. It was clean, almost new-looking, and already powered on. The screen displayed a single message: "Look behind you." My blood ran cold as I slowly turned around. I turned around, my breath catching in my throat, but there was nothing there. The street was completely empty. No cars, no people, just the faint hum of a distant street lamp flickering erratically. I stood there for a moment, clutching the new phone like it might provide some sort of protection. My mind raced with the possibilities. Was this some kind of elaborate prank? Or was I losing my grip on reality? Before I could even begin to process, the phone in my hand buzzed again. A video this time. My thumb hovered over the play button, dread twisting in my stomach, but I knew I couldn't leave it unanswered. The video started with the same shaky, low-angle perspective as the others. This time, it was outside on my street. The camera panned slowly, as if searching for something, or someone. I recognized my house immediately, and then the camera stopped moving. It was focused on me, standing exactly where I was, holding the phone, staring into the screen. My movements were perfectly mirrored in real time. My legs went weak, and the phone nearly slipped from my grip. Whoever was filming wasn't just close. They were watching me at that very second. I whipped my head around, scanning the shadows, but there was still no one there.